In the late 18th century, Paris faced a pressing issue. Its cemeteries were overflowing. The solution: move the bones to the abandoned quarries beneath the city, transforming them into the sprawling Paris Catacombs. By the end of the 18th century, an estimated 6 million people's remains were relocated into this dark labyrinth beneath the city streets. The catacombs, now a macabre tourist attraction, have long been rumored to be haunted. People have reported eerie occurrences, but one story stands out among the rest. A tale of a young man named Mark, whose fate would become an unsettling legend. In the summer of 2013, Mark, a university student with a fascination for the macabre, decided to explore the catacombs after hours. Despite the warnings and the strict prohibitions against entering unauthorized areas, he and a group of friends ventured into the maze-like tunnels. They were equipped with flashlights, cameras, and a sense of daring curiosity. For hours, they wandered through the dark corridors, marveling at the countless piles of bones and skulls. They joked nervously about encountering ghosts, but as time passed, the joking subsided into an uneasy silence. The deeper they went, the more disorienting the tunnels became. The intricate layout of the catacombs, with its countless turns and identical passages, made it easy to lose one's way. After several hours, Mark and his friends realized they had ventured far beyond the marked paths. Exhausted and uneasy, they decided to head back. But as they retraced their steps, something peculiar began to happen. Mark noticed a faint whispering sound, almost imperceptible, echoing off the walls. His friends dismissed it as their imagination, but Mark couldn't shake the feeling that they were being followed. The whispering grew louder and more insistent, transforming into chilling murmurs that seemed to come from all directions. Mark's flashlight flickered, casting long, distorted shadows. In a moment of panic, he glanced behind him and saw a shadowy figure, an indistinct but unmistakable presence. Desperate to escape, Mark and his friends quickened their pace, but the whispers grew into frantic cries. The shadows seemed to grow closer, and the air grew colder. Their breaths formed visible puffs in the chilling air. In a final attempt to find their way out, they stumbled upon an ancient, sealed-off section of the catacombs. The eerie whispers grew deafening, and a cold draft swept through the tunnels. Finally, they emerged into the night, their faces pale and their hearts racing. They rushed back to the safety of their homes, but Mark was haunted by what he had experienced. He couldn't sleep, and the memory of those whispers gnawed at his sanity. The shadowy figure, the chilling cold, and the unsettling cries left an indelible mark on him. Weeks later, Mark received an anonymous package containing a single photograph. It showed him and his friends in the catacombs, but there was something wrong with the image. In the background, barely noticeable but unmistakably present, was a dark, shadowy figure standing among the bones, its face obscured, but its malevolent presence palpable. Mark never returned to the catacombs, and he distanced himself from his friends, who also seemed to have been deeply affected by the experience. To this day, he avoids dark, enclosed spaces, forever haunted by the whispers and shadows that followed him from the depths of Paris's underworld. The catacombs continue to attract thrill-seekers and urban explorers, but some parts of the labyrinth are strictly off-limits. Perhaps, somewhere in the dark, hidden passages, the whispers still linger, waiting for the next unwary visitor. The photograph Mark received was only the beginning. As time passed, he began to notice changes in his daily life. He would find small, unexplained objects out of place in his apartment. A door slightly ajar when he was certain he had closed it, or a book moved from its shelf. Most unsettling of all were the dreams. Each night, Mark would dream of the catacombs, of endless corridors lined with bones, of whispers echoing off the walls, and of the shadowy figure that had haunted him. Mark's friends also experienced strange occurrences. Sarah, one of the group, reported seeing shadowy figures out of the corner of her eye and hearing faint whispers when alone. David, another member, began to suffer from severe insomnia and paranoia, convinced that he was being watched. Each of them tried to rationalize their experiences, attributing them to stress or imagination, but none could deny the growing sense of dread. One evening, Mark received an email from an unknown address with a chilling message. Asterisk, you shouldn't have come. Now you're part of the collection. Asterisk. Attached to the email was a video clip taken in the catacombs. In the footage, Mark and his friends were visible, but there was something profoundly wrong with it. The video showed them walking past a section of the catacombs that was supposed to be sealed off. The camera seemed to catch glimpses of ghostly figures, translucent shapes moving among the bones. Desperate for answers, Mark decided to investigate further. He contacted an old professor who specialized in paranormal studies and shared his experiences. The professor, intrigued, agreed to help. He explained that the Paris Catacombs were not just a repository of bones, but also a place of dark energy. According to some local legends, the catacombs had been used for occult rituals centuries ago, and those energies might still linger. The professor suggested that Mark and his friends return to the catacombs with a plan to confront whatever was tormenting them. Despite their fear, they agreed, driven by the need to end the haunting. With a team of paranormal investigators and the professor, they re-entered the catacombs. Armed with modern equipment, thermal cameras, electromagnetic field detectors, and spirit boxes, they ventured back into the dark labyrinth. As they descended, the temperature dropped dramatically. The equipment began to register unusual spikes in activity, and the whispering resumed, louder and more urgent. The team reached the sealed-off section visible in the video, and with careful examination, they found a hidden passageway that had been concealed for centuries. They followed the hidden passage, which led them to a small, forgotten chamber deep within the catacombs. The walls of the chamber were covered with strange symbols and drawings, evidence of ancient rituals. In the center of the room lay a stone altar, and on it, a small collection of items, objects and relics that had been taken from the bodies during the relocation. As they investigated, a sudden cold wind swept through the chamber. The shadows on the walls began to move, coalescing into a dark, menacing figure, the same one Mark had seen before. The figure emanated a palpable sense of malevolence. The team used their equipment to communicate with the entity. The spirit box crackled with static, and then a voice emerged, distorted and chilling. Asterisk, leave now, or join us forever. Asterisk. Terrified, Mark and his friends attempted to retreat, but the passageway they had come through began to close, as if the catacombs themselves were rejecting their presence. The team scrambled, their fear escalating as the walls seemed to shift and close in around them. With great effort, they managed to escape back to the main tunnels. The exit was barely visible in the dark, but they pushed through, emerging into the fresh air of the Paris night. Mark and his friends were shaken but relieved to be out of the catacombs. The experience left them scarred, both physically and mentally. The haunting didn't end immediately. The nightmares and inexplicable occurrences continued for months. Eventually, Mark moved away from Paris, seeking a fresh start far from the shadows of the catacombs. He found some peace, but the haunting memories and the photograph of the shadowy figure remained with him. To this day, the Paris catacombs hold their secrets deep in the darkness, and some believe that Mark and his friends are not the only ones who have ventured too far into the labyrinth. Whispers of their story have become part of the urban legend surrounding the catacombs, a chilling reminder of the eerie depths that lie beneath the City of Lights. Years passed since Mark's harrowing escape from the Paris catacombs. He had settled in a small town far from the shadows of the catacombs, trying to live a normal life. But the echoes of that night never truly left him. Despite the distance, Mark would occasionally hear whispers in the night, and fleeting shadows would dance at the edge of his vision. One chilly autumn evening, Mark received an unexpected letter. The envelope was unmarked, the handwriting unfamiliar. Inside, he found a single page with a cryptic message. The darkness you escaped has found a new way. The collection grows. Return or be forgotten. The letter was accompanied by another photograph, similar to the one Mark had received years earlier. This new photograph was taken in the same chamber deep within the catacombs, but this time, the shadowy figure was unmistakably clearer, more defined. It seemed to be reaching out toward Mark, its eyes glowing with an ominous light. Mark's heart raced. The letter implied that the dark presence in the catacombs had not only survived but had grown stronger. Despite his fear, Mark felt an inexplicable pull to confront whatever was brewing in the depths of Paris. He contacted his old friends, Sarah and David, who had also relocated but remained haunted by their experiences. They were reluctant but agreed to return, driven by a shared sense of unresolved terror and a need to understand the true nature of their ordeal. The three of them reunited in Paris and prepared for another descent into the catacombs. This time, they were joined by a more experienced team of paranormal researchers, including a historian specializing in occult practices. The historian revealed that the symbols and artifacts found in the hidden chamber were linked to an ancient cult known as the Children of the Abyss, who had once conducted dark rituals in the catacombs to harness the spirits of the deceased. The group re-entered the catacombs, their nerves on edge. They made their way through the twisting passages, their equipment detecting increasingly erratic readings. The whispering voices from before returned, now louder and more chaotic. The oppressive atmosphere seemed to press down on them, and shadows flitted just beyond the reach of their flashlights. As they approached the sealed-off section, the temperature dropped sharply. The hidden passageway had been partially opened, as if inviting them in. With a mix of trepidation and resolve, they followed the passage into the chamber. Inside, the chamber had changed. The strange symbols on the walls were now animated, glowing with a faint, eerie light. The stone altar was adorned with new relics and offerings, seemingly placed there recently. The sense of malevolence was palpable, as if the very walls of the catacombs were alive with dark energy. The shadowy figure appeared once again, more defined and menacing than ever before. It seemed to draw strength from the artifacts and the symbols, its form shifting and writhing. The paranormal team attempted to use their equipment to communicate with the entity, but their efforts only seemed to provoke it further. Suddenly, the ground trembled, and the chamber began to shift and distort. The walls closed in, and the passageways became a maze of twisting corridors. It became clear that the catacombs were fighting back, the labyrinth expanding to trap them. In a frantic attempt to escape, Mark and his friends stumbled upon an old, hidden tunnel that hadn't been previously mapped. It was narrow and claustrophobic, but they had no choice but to crawl through it. The air was thick with dust, and their progress was slow and torturous. The whispers grew louder, filling the tunnel with a cacophony of ghostly voices. As they emerged into a more familiar part of the catacombs, the oppressive feeling lifted slightly. They made their way back to the surface, their exhaustion and fear overwhelming. Once outside, they breathed in the fresh night air with a mix of relief and trepidation. The paranormal researchers vowed to investigate the catacombs further, hoping to understand and possibly contain the dark force within. Mark, Sarah, and David knew their lives had been irrevocably changed. The experience had left them with a deeper understanding of the dark forces lurking beneath the city. Mark decided to leave Paris for good, seeking a fresh start in a new country. He left behind a journal documenting their experiences, hoping to warn future explorers of the dangers hidden in the labyrinthine depths. The Paris catacombs continued to attract thrill-seekers and urban explorers, but many avoided the deeper, forbidden areas. The whispers of Mark's story became part of the local lore, a cautionary tale about the shadows that linger in the darkness beneath the city of lights. And though Mark tried to move on, the memory of those dark corridors and the shadowy figure remained with him, a chilling reminder of the malevolent presence that still resided in the depths of Paris. The catacombs, it seemed, would never let go of their secrets, and the darkness below continued to grow. Months passed since Mark, Sarah, and David had fled the Paris catacombs, and each struggled to reclaim a sense of normalcy. Yet, the haunting experiences lingered, as if the darkness of the catacombs had not only followed them, but had also left an indelible mark on their lives. Each one was plagued by disturbing dreams and an unshakable feeling of being watched. The photograph of the shadowy figure remained a constant reminder of their encounter. Mark had moved to a small village in Spain, hoping the serene environment would help him heal. But he found that even in this quiet place, he was haunted. His dreams were filled with the same whispers and shadows from the catacombs, and he often woke up to see dark shapes at the edge of his vision. Desperate for answers, he began researching occult practices and historical records related to the children of the abyss. Sarah had moved to London, attempting to start anew. However, she found herself drawn to the study of paranormal phenomena, trying to make sense of her experiences. She joined a local paranormal investigation group, but every investigation seemed to lead her back to the same unsettling feelings she had experienced in the catacombs. David had tried to distance himself from the supernatural, focusing on his career and relationships. Yet, he found himself plagued by insomnia and anxiety. His dreams were particularly vivid, often portraying scenes of the catacombs' dark corridors and the shadowy figure reaching out to him. He began to suspect that his own fears had become a part of him, intertwined with the lingering presence from their ordeal. One evening, Mark received an urgent call from Sarah. She had discovered something alarming while researching occult practices related to the catacombs. She had come across an old manuscript detailing the children of the abyss and their dark rituals, which included a prophecy about the Great Convergence, a time when the spirits of the catacombs would seek to break free from their confines and spread their influence beyond the labyrinth. According to the manuscript, the children of the abyss had managed to trap powerful spirits within the catacombs during their rituals. These spirits were bound by ancient magic, but if the bonds were weakened or if certain conditions were met, the spirits could escape and wreak havoc on the world above. The manuscript suggested that the events of their encounter had inadvertently disturbed these bonds, creating a potential for a catastrophic release. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Mark, Sarah, and David decided they had to return to Paris and confront the darkness once and for all. They were joined by a team of experts in ancient rituals and occult practices who could assist in understanding and potentially reversing the effects of the prophecy. Upon arriving in Paris, they met with the paranormal researchers who had previously assisted them. The team had discovered disturbing patterns in recent reports of unexplained phenomena around the city: ghostly apparitions, strange occurrences, and an increase in cases of psychological distress among residents. The group prepared for their descent into the catacombs once again. This time, they were armed with not only the latest paranormal investigation equipment, but also the knowledge of ancient rites that might help them contain the spirits. They planned to head directly to the chamber where they had previously encountered the shadowy figure and attempt to perform a ritual to restore the protective barriers. As they entered the catacombs, the oppressive atmosphere was even more intense than before. The whispers were louder and more urgent, and the temperature dropped to an unbearable chill. The shadowy figure seemed to be waiting for them, its presence felt even before it appeared. They navigated the twisting passages with greater determination, their hearts pounding as they approached the hidden chamber. The once familiar symbols on the walls were now even more vibrant, pulsating with an unsettling energy. The altar was surrounded by a growing collection of artifacts, as if the spirits were gathering their strength. The team set up their equipment and began the ritual, using the incantations and symbols from the manuscript. The air crackled with energy as they chanted, trying to strengthen the barriers and contain the spirits. The shadowy figure appeared, more defined and furious than ever. It moved with a malevolent grace, trying to disrupt the ritual. As the ritual reached its climax, the chamber was filled with a blinding light. The spirits began to wail and scream, their forms becoming more defined. The walls of the catacombs seemed to quake as the energy of the ritual clashed with the dark forces. In a final, desperate act, Mark and Sarah focused their energy on the shadowy figure, using a special talisman they had brought as a focus for the ritual. The figure recoiled and howled, its form becoming less distinct. With a final incantation, the light intensified, and the shadowy figure seemed to dissolve into the air. The chamber fell silent, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted slightly. The group was exhausted but hopeful that they had managed to restore some semblance of balance to the catacombs. They made their way back to the surface, wary but relieved. In the days following their return, reports of paranormal activity around Paris subsided. The haunting presence seemed to have retreated, though Mark, Sarah, and David knew they had only managed to contain the darkness, not eliminate it entirely. The catacombs remained a place of mystery and fear, a dark reminder of the malevolent forces that lay hidden beneath the city. Mark, Sarah, and David returned to their separate lives, forever marked by their experiences. They remained connected by their shared ordeal, bound by the knowledge that the darkness they had confronted was never truly gone. It merely lay in wait for those who dared to venture into the shadows. And so, the Paris Catacombs continued to be a place of both fascination and dread, where whispers of ancient rituals and the echoes of trapped spirits lingered, waiting for the next unwary soul to cross their path. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story.